and Joe know all there is to know, from masterpieces to deep fried tacos. And if the movie sucks, you might hear them say, there's no telling where the guys will take you. Get ready for a spoiler. Won't say it twice, cause we already warned you. Better watch out, it's gonna ruin the plot. Real spoilers. Real spoilers. Real spoilers.
Broadcasting from the lush but not lavish studios located in the basement of the O'Keefe Institute for Advanced Film Snarkitude, this is Real Spoilers, episode 756. Iron Man meets the greatest American hero.
Iron Man meets the Guyver.
You lied about our location, though.
Oh, that's right. I forgot. We're broadcasting from multiple undisclosed locations, although technically, by lying, I'm not disclosing them,
See?
which means I'm telling the truth.
Ah,
Circus. I see that's some fancy footwork there, Tom.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, that was pretty good.
And
good lawyering.
And I am in the
That's true.
basement of the O'Keefe Institute for Advanced Film Markets.
Kevin, you're in the bunker.
Yeah, radioactive.
Yeah.
I'm feeling it.
I'm just
So-
at home.
Joe's in the only place not cool enough to get a nickname.
The south side of St.
Joe's
Louis.
in the cat room, apparently.
He's just running around like a I don't know what he's doing.
So I guess before we dig in proper, we should all go around the table and introduce ourselves, or this virtual table, excuse me.
This is Joe.
This is Kevin.
And this is Tom. We should say we're recording, we're trying Squadcasts. We've never used Squadcasts before, so we'll see if that works. But we're doing that because Kevin's feeling sickly. He's got his special time, and he didn't want to come in to the
Hey,
office.
I'm just trying to be nice and not get anyone sick.
He
so,
didn't want us all to sync up.
Yes. So
Goodness.
So we're dispersed. But also, while we're here, let's do some shameless plugs. Don't forget, we're available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, iHeart, TuneIn. Wherever you find a podcast, you can find us. While you're there, be sure and follow us so you never miss an episode. Maybe leave us a review, which is super helpful. You can also find us on Facebook at facebook.com/realspoilers. While you're there, like the page, join the group. You can get a little bit more engagement in the group than the page, that's for sure.
Yeah.
We call the group the League of Show Sharers because we're hoping you will share an episode with your friends and or loved ones, and maybe
enemies. Remember, we don't.
Sure, well,
we don't leave
care.
anyone out.
Yeah, maybe if you like it, they'll like it. So people who were kind enough to share an episode last week include Travis Tewitt, Brendan McGuckin, Gabriel Lugo, Ralph Tribble, Jason McLean, Tammy Lynn Powers Betts, Chris Magic Man, Julianne Jordan, Richard Kortzer, Glenn Cougar Mellenbrewer, Tom Dowdy, Chris Valls, Phil Timon, Tyler Ward, Heather Sachs, Dissect That Film, Christopher Rex, Invasion of the Remake, Ronnie Castle, The Real Pete, Mike and Oscar, In Session Film, Geek to Me Radio, Binge Movies, Batman Ride Guy, Feel and Film, Ryan Terry, and the Nostalgia Cast. So thank you very much. We greatly appreciate it. And also, don't forget, we have a Patreon, patreon.com/Real Spoilers, where for $5 a month you get all sorts of bonus content, and we like you extra
A little bit.
and we also finally have a YouTube channel that you can find, oddly enough, on YouTube. And
It's weird how that works.
if Squadcast works, you will be seeing us there.
Or you might just hear our voices again. We don't
Yes.
know.
Or you might see like stock photos
Yes.
of each
You know
other.
what? We'll just put up the movie Blue Beetle. This will be our commentary track over the movie. They won't care.
Yes.
I'm a little sad and disappointed that no one commented on Justin's photo from when he left at the end of the Turtles episode.
Oh, what did you do?
Well, they have to go
I guess that's
watch
fair.
our YouTube video to find out, but no one's commented. So
And you will not be able to use this as the commentary for the Blue Beetle movie because that is 2 hours and 7 minutes, and there is no way we are talking about this movie for 2 hours and 7 minutes.
No.
So, and I will say, I don't think this is a bad movie.
I totally agree with you.
It is a very mediocre movie. I think if you approach it as a family film,
Sure.
it's solid.
Although I saw a couple kids, now the theater wasn't that full, but there were a couple families with their kids, and about 45, 50 minutes in, I'm going, what are these kids doing? They have to be bored to death by this movie.
Yeah.
Nothing happens for the first hour.
Absolutely terrified. Because the sequence when Jaime gets the scarab and it gets on him, that is like something out of a horror movie.
That was the first time I go, oh, something.
Yeah.
Like, seriously, like the transformation and stuff, I was like, okay, now we're cooking.
That was like a Cronenberg film.
Oh my God.
It was
crazy.
great. And like, it was really cool. But man, this movie, it's okay. It's okay. But I think the writing is really poor. I think we've seen it, it's just so generic.
It is
with
very generic.
The beats of the story. I think that it cribs a lot from like Spider-Man. It felt a lot like a Spider-Man origin movie, like the Raimi Spider-Man, and it just took so long to get going. And I really
so did the first Spider-Man.
But I'll tell you what, though, maybe it's because of Raimi and being an auteur, and it was interesting to look at. But this Spider-Man did not drag like this movie dragged.
Or is it because we know Spider-Man? We know who Peter Parker is. We know who Aunt May is. We know who Mary Jane is. We know all of that stuff. Where I do feel like with this one...
Although I would say, if anything, that should work against Spider-Man, right? Like,
sure.
Like I know the story. Get to it,
right?
Get to it.
Right.
And this should be interesting because not as many people know Blue Beetle, but there's something about it. Like, this movie made me think of Spider-Man, but the new one where I go, let's just introduce superheroes, because the origin story, hour-long backstory is getting really bogged down.
I think
and most origin stories are variations on a theme. Like,
the same thing.
They're pretty similar.
Right,
I got these powers. I don't understand. How do I, it's like, it's...
But also, like, I went into a lab and I got this thing that is a bug that gave me powers that I this feels very much
and it was secretly given to me by the person who will be the villain of this movie.
Right.
Yeah,
it felt, the beats of it felt a lot like Spider-Man, which doesn't have to be a bad...
The blue beats of it.
Yeah.
Look at you. Look at you.
Yeah, I want this movie to work, and I wish it did better. And I wish it was better because the representation's important. I love the cultural stuff. I think it's really cool to see that instead of seeing the same settings you see over and over, right? Like, it's not set in New York. It's not set...
Well, that's actually interesting because the Jaime Reyes story takes place in El Paso, Texas. So I do find it, like, in the comics at least.
Yeah.
So I do find it interesting that they have made up... DC is notorious for not taking place in the real world, right? Keystone, Central City, Metropolis, Gotham. Where, again, with this one, they take it out of the real world, which is where it's set in the comics, and then make up some fictional... I don't even know where this is supposed to be.
Palmyra City.
I thought it was supposed to be Florida because they kept talking about the Keys. Do other states have Keys? I honestly don't know. Like, maybe Texas does. It's on the ocean.
Yeah, that's
Palmyra
true.
City is a city in Texas, so it's still in Texas, but it's a kind of a made up. But I like that they took it closer to. I mean, because obviously you have all the Hispanic influence, and you've got just a different setting than we're always seeing New York, and at least in the or variations of New York, Chicago, etc. So again, I like the representation, I liked the setting and all the cultural stuff. I like the family element. I thought that was fun, but it did
I didn't
also
like that at all.
Well, no, I liked the idea. I thought the family was terrible.
It was too big. Like, they were I mean, I know that they were supposed to be the comedic element, but like, it just almost never made me laugh.
I think giving him,
because of the writing.
Yeah, and I also the whole grandma thing at the end where it's just like, what? Okay, like
I think the grandma thing is good, but the movie's so tonally mismatched. I can't tell because Blue Beetle doesn't kill, but my family is a bunch of crazy murderers.
Right.
Like, Grandma has a machine gun and is gunning people down. What kind of message are you trying to send? Like, there are ways that you could impart those virtues without, like, mixing the message up so much. Like, I get that they aren't him, but you still shouldn't have his family mowing people down.
Well, maybe
and taking bug legs through people's chests.
That one was crazy.
Well, the movie ends with, I mean, it resolves its villain story with a murder suicide.
Yeah,
that's true. That's very true.
It's strange.
At least Jaime didn't drag Susan Sarandon into the fire. It was the guy who was like ripped apart and put back together.
Yeah, but it's still
But
like
I agree with
this
you.
is basically a family movie that resolves its plot with a murder.
I was
suicide.
trying to look up this director because I do think he has a good look. Like I like the way the movie looked for the most part. With when you get to like the
This
city.
This movie was filmed like an episode of Power Rangers.
Well, okay, but remember
movie
this
looked
was
like Power
this
Rangers
was
to
supposed to
me.
be HBO Max.
Yeah.
This was supposed to be a straight to HBO Max. So I
like
do,
Peacemaker. It looks like a film.
well, it depends on the director, right?
I
Like,
know, but you
that's-
see what I'm saying? Like we can't just pigeonhole that, right? Like you've got Netflix movies that have a $200 million budget and win Oscars too that are
Yeah.
streaming movies. So I don't want to lump streaming movies into this category of it's streaming, so it doesn't have to look good. Like
No,
I don't think
that's not.
you know,
I agree with you. It's not what I'm just saying. Like I think that maybe there are certain things that were filmed that I feel like maybe he knew that it was going to be on a TV rather than a big screen.
Yeah.
So there's probably some sort of
this had
look.
$100 million budget, so it
Yeah.
was not nothing.
it's still a ton. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, when I was watching, I would never text at the Alamo. Of course, that's big no.
Yeah,
But I
Godzilla
wanted
chew your face off.
I wanted to text Tom because I knew he had already seen it and be like, "This movie looks like an episode of Power Rangers." It's so uninteresting to look at. We talk about Raimi. I think that's the perfect example. Raimi's an auteur. When you see a Raimi movie, it looks like a Raimi movie. It's interesting. He has a style. This movie is so generic, not only the plot, but by the look of it, that there's not much to grab onto because the action doesn't get going until an hour in. So you're just hoping that something's going to come along and pique your interest.
This does feel like they being Warner Brothers. And I'm not going to throw James Gunn under the bus with this one. This one's not on him, right? Like he
No, people are
Yeah.
like, this is the first in the James. It's like,
No.
no, it is
No.
released while he's in
he
charge.
said
he had
said
nothing
that,
to do with it.
that Blue Beetle is going to be part of his DCU, but this
Yeah.
is not,
His
And I will
producing partner
say-
is the producer of this.
Yeah,
I will
so.
say, even though I was lukewarm on this movie, I hope they keep Blue Beetle.
he's great. I like
because
him a lot.
I liked him and
he's great.
and I enjoyed the character. I just feel like if it had better writing behind it,
Yes.
but yeah, I certainly hope, because clearly this thing's underperforming. What's it on pace to make, like $15 million this weekend or
That's
something?
25 million.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I did like this character. I think just because this movie underperforms and I'm lukewarm on it, I still think this character can work in the larger DC.
Absolutely.
So I hope they keep it.
He's
This
I mean,
actor, his name is Xolo Maridueña,
Yeah,
I
he's,
think is how you pronounce it.
Cobra Kai.
He's in Cobra Kai.
He's on Cobra
and
Kai. That's where anybody's
he's,
going to know him from.
If you go to Alamo, you'll see he was in a lot of commercials before he got
he's acting
to
a
be-
lot.
Yeah.
I think he's very charismatic. I think he has it. He's a very talented and very charismatic actor. I liked him a lot. So he is a shining point. If he weren't in it, if there were a weaker leading actor,
For
I think
sure.
this movie would just be terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah, like as tepid as I am on this movie, if you swap him out for somebody else, this movie
Yeah.
immediately goes in the toilet.
This is
'Cause you
this is a
look-
$5 million movie.
Yeah, but I mean, every time that he smiles or just says his lines with this type of energy, you immediately are picked up. You're like, oh man, I like this guy, and it's a shame that the script wasn't better because the writing just felt so cheesy. Okay, Susan Sarandon is terrible in this
She
movie.
is phoning it in.
Horrible.
She was phoning it in so much. I'm afraid she might have aphasia. I'm like, is that what's going? Is that what's going on?
But I mean, terrible villains. Both the villains are bland and generic. We've seen it all before.
I can forgive the muscle, right? Like I can forgive the muscle being bland and generic. He's just there for the fighting. That's fine. But you
it's
do
fine,
need
but-
someone else, right? And you're totally right. And it's funny how a lot of these movies have gone back, even the Marvel stuff, have gone back to actors of our past and given them, here's a little paycheck. Here's,
Robert Redford.
That was
Amazing.
the first one I was thinking of. Robert Redford, Ben Kingsley, all of these guys and none of them felt like they were phoning it in.
No, because they had good material.
Michael Douglas, Michelle Pfeiffer.
Two. I think there's two reasons they don't feel like they're phoning it in. One, they had good material.
True.
Two, they brought those people in to a franchise that was very well loved and respected. So even if they felt like it was silly, they had faith that when this is assembled, no pun intended, it will be okay. And so they I think it's easier to commit to some of the sillier aspects of a superhero movie when you've seen what this franchise has produced thus far, and you've seen that it's been really good, and even if it's not your thing, it's been very well received.
Oh, even Glenn Close. That was the one I was thinking. Glenn Close in Guardians of the Galaxy. Like that's a crazy person to get in one of these movies.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's like such a cameo, though. I mean, she doesn't even have a chance to really do what.
Oh, I think she's gonna be the world mind, but that's a whole no.
But in that movie, I just mean they didn't bring her in, and she's like a major
no,
part.
Sure,
Susan Sarandon, they keep cutting back to her, and also how ridiculous! You think the head of this company is in a helicopter going to some ground assault? Like she would be nowhere near that. That's so stupid that they have her going along every single mission where there's guns and stuff involved. Like
look, Kevin. She's been to leadership trainings. She knows that the ground crew, the grunts, need to see the boss's boots on the ground.
She's a girl boss.
They should be invested in this thing as much as she is. If she's there, that's why.
The morale for morale.
Yeah, right. The one thing that I do appreciate about this movie is I absolutely agree about Jaime. I think he's fantastic. I think that suit is outstanding.
I
the
agree.
look of the suit is fantastic.
Yes. I was going to say in my list of good things about this movie, the fact that suit is largely practical.
Yes.
I love. Although I will say that might be some of the Power Rangers vibe that you're getting.
That's fair.
But it's not just the look of the suit, though. No, I mean the silliness of it, right? Like, you know how silly Power Rangers can get, and it's hokey, and the vibe of the film, like plot-wise, I think it wasn't necessarily just the look of the suits or anything, but I wish I could pinpoint it better. But there were certain scenes where it had this goofball feel, and it was really tonally mismatched, where in a TV show like Power Rangers, a kid's Saturday morning TV show or whatever, you excuse it, where in this movie the drama beats are really good, but you get this really dramatic stuff, and then you get this really silly stuff, and it to me it didn't mesh very well, and I think they could have done a better job. And also I think it's because they're trying to cram in a lot of Silver Age stuff.
There's a lot. The fact that they reference not only the Golden Age Blue Beetle, but they get the connection between Dan Garrett and Ted Kord right.
Yeah.
Is like, I was sitting there in the theater, and as soon as they said that Ted Kord's mentor originally had the scarab, I was like, holy shit. Like, that is blue. Okay, so Ted Kord is low-key one of my favorite characters.
He's
like,
Loki? What? I thought that was a Marvel thing.
The other guy.
Confused.
First crossover.
Yeah. I've always loved that suit. I think the suit is like quintessential Silver Age DC Comics. He's not Batman, but he is like the billionaire vigilante, but he's dumber than Batman and not as good as Batman. So he's just always kind of had that everyman quality.
I love that, though. I
think it's good. That's why, yes.
And I'm sad. I hope they do bring him back, because I love the idea
It's got to be Patrick Wilson, right?
The Tick? I mean, because, he would look just like him.
No, he played...
Oh, I'm sorry. I was thinking Patrick Warburton.
No. Patrick Wilson played Blue Beetle in Watchmen. Night Owl 2 is Blue Beetle. Like, that's who that's supposed to be.
The ship even looks the same. Like,
it
when
looks
that ship
exactly the
when
same.
that ship takes off, I was like, oh, it's Watchmen.
The
which is like, that's Alan Moore doing a commentary on those DC characters.
No.
They were Charlton characters.
The original people that he wanted to use, DC had bought Charlton Comics.
Yeah.
So Peacemaker, Blue Beetle, The Question, Nightshade, and Captain Atom were all these characters that DC had just had sitting there and weren't doing anything with. So Alan Moore said, give me those characters and I'll do something with them. And he said, no. And he said, okay, I'll just take everything about those characters down to the letter and just change their names.
Yeah,
and
that's what I'm saying. Like, he's using them all as these archetypes. They're the same characters. They're just made up names. And so he's basing so much of their likeness and appearance. They're virtually the exact same.
The exact same.
But I really would love the idea of seeing that. And I get that, like, this is the modern Blue Beetle, and I totally understand the representation, so I love it. But I like the idea of Ted Kord coming in and being able to see that goofy, like you said, like Bruce Wayne Batman, that it has goofy inventions and isn't as good as Batman. Because I think in the comics that makes for a lot of fun to have all these things. And that was honestly at the end of the movie when the family starts pulling out these different inventions. I'm like, this is fun. I like this.
And I think we should kind of mention the line that got everybody into tizzy about Batman being a fascist. It's like it
in context is great.
That's exactly it. The context, even out of context, that joke is fine.
I felt like it worked in the context of the trailer. Even the trailer established that George Lopez was a conspiracy theory nut job,
anti-government and all this.
There was that was just people wanting to be mad, and there are people who want to be mad about this movie. Like and want to be mad about this movie and want to be mad on behalf of this movie. Like Variety posted a thing about how bad the box office is. In the comments, I posted a picture of my theater, and I was like 10 minutes before, and it's the picture I sent you guys where there's literally like one person. Yeah. And like some people were like, oh, that's a shame. And I wasn't like, F this movie. I was just like, this is my theater 10 minutes before showtime on a Friday night at 7 p.m.
Right.
And I got to tell you, I haven't been to a theater on a Friday night in probably 25 years. And
dang. Okay.
And so I honestly thought, even on a movie that I knew was going to have a soft opening, that it would still be somewhat crowded.
Sure.
Because it's a Friday night at 7, and like there ended up being like 4 other people in the theater, and like most people understood what I was getting at, that but some people like were so mad at me, and they're like, well, 10 minutes, people have reserved seats, they don't show up until 3 seconds before the movie starts. And I was like, yes, there are people who do that, but it's not 98% of the attendees. Like that's not a thing. It's
the internet is just ridiculous. Everyone wants to argue, everyone wants to be mad. This movie has nothing to be mad about. Again, it's not, the representation is an issue. I think the casting is good. I think I enjoyed those aspects a lot, but the script should have been a lot stronger. It's just not that interesting, unfortunately. I do like the character. I hope he comes back. We should say real quick, so we kind of touched on the origin story. We should say, like, Jaime he's a college graduate. He comes back home. He finds out that, and this movie's trying to do a lot too, right? So like Kord is trying to do military stuff, scientific research. They're landlords. Like I
don't think they're. I think from. So
no, they're landlords because they own the house that they live in.
Oh, so, I thought they were doing like a public domain thing where they were trying to.
They're raising the rent.
Got it.
If you look in the background on these scenes, almost everything has like a Kord Realty sign on it. So like, no, they've ended up acquiring lots of real estate that I guess they've been renting out because they didn't have a need for it, and now that their plans are expanding, they're going to start booting people and taking it back.
Okay.
But I think this movie has a lot of good things to say, but it's trying to spread itself so thin because you have the gentrification, you have the racism and ethnicity stuff with the workforce and all that, and then obviously you have this family drama at Kord Industries or whatever going on, where you've got Jenny Kord, who is Ted Kord's daughter. Ted Kord disappears, and she is trying to kind of fight the company back from her aunt, who played by Susan Sarandon, who is now trying to invest the resources in military operations, where that is not what the company was founded upon.
No, I think it was founded upon that, but when Ted took over, he pulled the Tony Stark and was like, "We're done with it." And then as soon as Ted went missing, Susan Sarandon's character came back in and was like, nope, we're going back to the military stuff. We're going back. Again, there are moments in these comic book movies where they bring in concepts and characters that I just never thought in a million years I would see brought to the big screen. And as soon as they mention OMAC, it's like, Jesus, that is
Legends of the Hidden Temple.
That's exactly right.
Isn't that what the guy's name was? As soon as I
think it was
heard
OMEC.
Okay, but I'm
either
like,
way,
that big statue head to start talking.
Which is also
I thought it was funny because it's like one-man Army Corps, and then they're like, we have thousands of suits, and I was like, well, it's not really one-man Army Corps then, but go on.
But
go on with your presentation.
They're each their own Army Corps.
It is bonkers that OMAC is like, so the thing in in the I think it was one of the crises. Like OMAC is a massive OMAC and Ted Cord are two like massive parts of this entire story. To where spoilers for I think it was Infinite Crisis. Ted Cord gets shot in the face and gets killed because he's figured this thing out about OMAC and all those different characters. So the fact that they introduce this concept is like, I appreciate that you're digging deep, like it's not Batman versus Superman. It's like you're digging to the D and C level DC characters, which aren't as strong as the Marvel ones. Like that bench is pretty.
But they can really do a lot with these characters. If we've seen, James Gunn chose Peacemaker. He's in the exact same category as Blue Beetle.
I would put him even lower. But I agree.
Okay, but yeah, they came together. Like they're part of the same development era and everything. And I think that if he can take Peacemaker and make that as solid as it is, like that is one of the best superhero things I've seen in a long time. And if he can do that, they can do it with Blue Beetle. So we can't really. It's not like you can be like, oh, well, these are lower characters or whatever.
I think, if anything, that should give you more freedom because people are less invested in these characters. Like if you start mucking around with Batman, everybody loses their. But if you change Blue Beetle's origin, like nobody's gonna care. There'll be two nerds that'll be all upset, but beyond that, like, because I know from when I worked at a comic book store, we would order 150, 200 copies of Detective Comics or Man of Steel. Blue Beetle, we'd order 3.
Right.
Like 1, 2, 3, and and at the end of the month, as I'm debating what gets moved into the back issue bins, typically we'd have 2 left. So nobody cares about Blue Beetle,
right?
And this was their
not
chance.
in the aggregate.
Well, I will say,
like Guardians, they could care about him.
They could,
thing, right?
And they did.
Yes.
With Blue Beetle, though, he's kind of like the Green Lantern, John Stewart. That character became like a focal point on Young Justice. I think on like the first 2 seasons of Young Justice.
Season 2.
Is it season 2?
Mm-hmm.
He's the main.
I think the first episode might be about him. It's one of the early season 2.
But it's like other scarabs coming. Like the team has to fight like other scarabs. So I do think that there is a whole generation of people that I don't know. I like that show a lot. I don't know how many people watch that show.
Yeah, it's decent.
But I do think that there's a lot of people that probably recognize that character, and I feel like they nail it. I feel like they don't have to explain the scarab is from space. Thank you very much. Like that's all. We're not going to tell you where it came from or anything, But
it is in the comics.
Oh no, I'm fine. Like, but they don't like delve into.
They don't give you another 20 minutes.
Yes,
no, that's great. That's great that they just said, "Oh, it's alien Arctic."
But yeah, I do think that this is I'm glad that the character is there. It's a shame that he got such a movie around him, right?
Yeah.
Like I think the suit looks to the point where I bought the McFarlane figure. Because I think the suit does look fantastic.
Yeah, suit's good.
I think that transformation sequence is literally something out of a horror movie.
The transformation sequence is the highlight of the film. It's very cool. It looks good. I think they spent all the money on that. Like the ending scene, they go to space basically. Like you're just like, oh, they just took everything.
Super dark in like a field.
They flew out of the Cord secret headquarter, whatever research lab into the dark of night in the sky where it was just, and then you just check out because it's like a bunch of CG blobs going boom, boom, boom.
Yeah, and same thing we see all the time.
But real quick, just to breeze through it though. So he's back from college. They're losing their house. He has to go get a crap job. His sister brings him in. He ends up getting fired because he defends Jenny Cord when Susan Sarandon and her aunt is like, we're going to put you in your place or whatever. And the henchman goes up to her and, he blurts out like, hey, she said, leave me alone. And
I do like Susan Sarandon's like, you're fired.
Yeah.
And he's like, meow.
He gets fired. Jenny Cord leaves, and she says, hey, come by the office. We're going to get you a job. And so when he goes to the office to find her, she has just stolen the scarab out of their research labs, and she doesn't know what to do. And so she hands him the big belly box.
Again, that's a deep cut into DC lore. Like, Big Belly Burger is their McDonald's. And
Yeah.
I appreciate.
This is the first time in a film they put it in. It's
Is
in the
that right?
Arrowverse stuff.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
They use it a lot in
Okay.
the TV stuff.
One of my
But-
favorite gags is there's a scene in a comic book where Wally West is like becoming the Flash. Like he's new at being the Flash.
He has to eat all the food.
He's like he had run somewhere and he goes to Big Belly Burger with his friend and like the tray has like 60 hamburgers
Yeah.
on there and this guy's like, how do you eat that? He's like, I gotta carb up, and he's just like
Oh,
plowing.
was that him and Chunk?
I think it was him and Chunk.
And I even remember where he was running to because I thought it was so cool. He in those early issues, in order to make money,
Yes.
like he would deliver organs for transplant.
Yes.
And so the hospitals would pay him to be like, get this kidney to Omaha, and he
That's
would
smart.
On it.
Yeah, yeah. But then when he'd get done, he was super hungry, and
Right.
so,
And he was
like,
just destroying Big Belly Burgers.
Yeah.
Like nobody's business.
those early Flash issues were so
So
cool. The things that they thought of in terms of like how he would use this to make money in a positive way,
Right.
and like the effects that the running would have on him, or like there was so much cool thought into those sorts of details being used.
Mark Wade, baby.
Was that Mark Wade back then? In those early
no, that
ones?
was
that was
Loebs Miller, maybe.
yeah. I think it was. I
think that's right.
yeah.
So he takes it home, and this is one of the parts that really frustrates me. I'm of two minds of the family thing. I love the familial relationship. I love the idea of the movie being family centric. On the flip side, I think they made them too silly. He's going for a job interview to save their house,
Yeah.
and they're all
Yeah.
yelling and honking. It's too goofy. I mean, I get it in a little kid's film, but this movie wants to be more sophisticated than that. But then they dumb the humor down to that goofiness, and it's like, you guys are clueless. He's trying to get a job, and he's not going to elementary school. Like he's at
Right.
this big, you know what I mean? It just frustrated me.
It's clearly like supposed to be a Fortune 500 company.
Yeah.
And the other problem with the representation aspect is when you make their heritage front and center in the film, and then you have them behave like that.
Right.
It has a boomerang effect of almost feeling like a commentary on like how dumb Hispanics
Which is
could be,
I
which
thought
is
the
not
same
what
thing.
which is not what the movie's trying to do. But it's hard not to read it that way. I'm just like, they wouldn't be this dumb.
But
Like,
also, when George Lopez pulls up in that truck for the first time, and La Cucaracha plays when he pulls up, and I was like, that seems a little on
it's-
the nose.
but
Like
it's
that,
written. It's written by a
Sure.
Hispanic writer. It's
That's what I'm
directed
saying,
by a
yeah.
Hispa- so
Right,
it's
right,
weird.
yeah.
They're obviously embracing the culture, and again, I enjoyed seeing a lot of those aspects. But when they behave that way, like you said, and they basically almost ruin his job opportunities because they're being so silly, it's like that's not funny to me. To me, I was stressed for Jaime. I'm like,
Right.
he's
Yeah.
trying to, you know what I mean? And I don't know, and I get what they're doing. Again, it's the silliness and trying to add humor, and then also balancing the family stuff. But it's too much. It's just too much.
You know, we've talked about this before from a representation standpoint, that like when you don't get a lot of representation and you see a scene like the one we talked
Yeah.
about, it feels like a commentary even if it's not. It's
Yeah.
like when we saw, what was the Netflix movie with
I know exactly what you're talking about.
I care about
Oh,
you,
I care a
or-
lot.
I care a lot.
I care a lot.
And the main character was just a complete sociopath who's also a lesbian. We've seen enough lesbian characters in movies, and it didn't feel like a commentary about lesbians. Like,
Oh,
don't
sure.
trust them. This is what they'll do. Where if that movie had come out 20 years ago, it would have been like, how can you make this story about lesbians? This is what you think of lesbian people.
Right.
You're hateful. And like that movie got none of that because, while it's not a perfect world by a long shot, it's gotten much better. And because we don't get as much Hispanic and Latino representation in films, that like, yeah, a scene like this can really feel off-putting, even if that's not their intention. And that clearly it wasn't.
And,
No.
and then so go from that scene. He takes the scarab home, and then again, this is for a job interview with Cord Industries, one of the biggest companies. And
It
they
is.
own their house and all this. But then they're like, he's like, she told me not to open it. His boss for this job interview, don't open it. They take
family's
it
like,
out, and,
"Open it."
start juggling it around and stuff. And again, I'm like, this is so careless, and they're acting so goofy about it. And it's like, this kid is trying to get a job, and the owner of the company he's said to do this one task, they're ruining his opportunities, and it's just frustrating for me.
The way you're describing it makes me think of Rose Byrne in Insidious 5, where it's just like, you did this. Like, just tell him. Like, just you made him forget everything, and then you divorced him because you didn't like how he turned out because you messed around with his brain, and now he's sad sack Billy. But the family was the same way, and but to that point though, Kevin, it does have that weird goofy tone, and sometimes that works, right? Like sometimes you get those weird goofy tones, and you throw some horror, right? And you don't expect it, you don't see it coming. And I know I've talked about it a bunch, but if you take a 5-year-old to see this movie and this transformation sequence happens, that kid's gonna be terrified.
They're gonna be scared for life.
Yes, for life. And because it's so well done, but it is. I mean, this thing's like, I do like where he's like, it crawled in his butt. He's like, it didn't crawl in my butt, but it's breaking out of his skin and it's tearing him up on the back. Like it's kind of.
But you know what? If the sister is a goofball, which she is, and I think she's way too over the top where it got to be annoying. But if the sister's doing that, I get it. If George Lopez, the kooky uncle's doing it, I get it. But when his dad and his mom, who seem to be the adults of the adults, are like, yeah, do it, Jaime. It's just like his dad wouldn't do that. They're not, their characters are not supposed to be that immature. And I thought that was wearing how they kept encouraging this type of behavior when they should know our son is trying to get this job and help us. So you know what I mean? The writing did not match the situation to me, and they did that throughout the film. Now, I like goofiness in other parts. I do think at the end, where it gets the attacks and stuff, I thought it was fun and the family was together. It worked well.
That Beetle thing felt like something out of a James Gunn movie.
Yeah,
the whole thing with like the kickstart my heart, and then
or I was thinking Watchmen. I really did think of Watchmen when I mean
it's hard not to.
The owl,
like
whatever that,
because it's the exact same thing.
Yeah,
But
they basically, what happens is Susan Sarandon is trying to track down the Scarab, and he gets into trouble when he goes back to find Jenny. She's running away out of the place, and he's like, "Oh, Jenny!" And then all of a sudden, all these guys with guns come after them and start shooting up. He's taking his uncle's beloved truck, and they're shooting it up. I did kind of like the running gag that the truck kept getting more and more destroyed throughout the movie. Like, that's a fun gag. But the family gets pulled into it, right? So he's trying to figure this thing out. He wants to know, how the hell do I get this Scarab off of me? This is given his powers. It transforms his body. Like the suit comes, overtakes him.
It's kind of like Iron Man 3. Like, that's how I would describe it. It's got like that liquid.
Yeah.
If you've ever seen The Guyver, which is kind of like this, it was an anime for a long time. They made a live action movie out of it that has like some of the best makeup effects you're going to see in a movie with that low of a budget. Like, everything in the movie, from the suit, the Guyver suit looks almost identical to this, or vice versa. But they've got like monster effects, like practical monster effects they turn Mark Hamill into a cockroach.
That's right.
A giant cockroach.
What I really enjoyed about this movie is once they go to Ted Kord's house, and it's like, well, okay, first of all, those flamingos, did anyone else notice how terrible the CG was on those flamingos that flew away from Ted Kord's mansion?
No, I didn't even notice them.
Oh my gosh. They set it up, and these flamingos are standing there and walk away. It looked like something out of a PlayStation 1 cutscene. It was so bad. But what was fun, and what made me think how fun a movie could be set in this time period, again, I'm not opposed to this being the modern Blue Beetle or anything, but when you go to his house and you see all the gadgets and it's kind of run down and felt like an 80s mansion, I'm like, man, this would be so fun to get a Blue Beetle set in the appropriate, or the 80s time period when this version of the comic was. But they go there to basically, she's like, I know where to take us. Jenny brings him to her dad's house, and he's basically has a bat cave, which is where you get that George Lopez scene where he says Batman's a fascist and all that. But they're trying to discover in the computer system, because George Lopez is a talented guy.
He's the Hispanic Doc Brown, which is what somebody calls him in the movie. And I was like, that's pretty spot on. Like, that's pretty good.
But he's going through, he's the only one that can go through Ted's computer, and he's finding out all this information. He says, I've got good news. I know how to remove it. I've got bad news. You have to be dead. And that was kind of a funny moment where he's like, this thing it's a symbiote basically, or it's basically trying to become one with you. And by now removing it, because it's protecting your brain and everything, if you try to remove it, you die. And so he's basically like, we're stuck with this thing. And so meanwhile, while they're there, I believe, jumping ahead, they go and try to attack the parents while they're at the house.
Like Cord Industries. It is funny though, just to touch on that real quick, so Jaime is wearing he's wearing a Gotham University sweatshirt. So which means that he probably went to Gotham to go to school, which if we know anything about these DC movies, it's just across the bay. Like they're all together. So
from
it's right
Texas.
There. Yeah, right. Hey man, I don't know anything, but they don't mention Queen Industries, which I think is interesting. Like, there's no mention of they talk about Bruce Wayne and Batman's a fascist, but there's no mention of the other guy who's a billionaire vigilante who is definitely not a fascist. Like, he is the exact opposite of a fascist.
Oliver Queen is like super left wing.
Very much so. And he's one of my favorites. He's great. Yeah. But I do find it funny that Oliver Queen is never mentioned. If they're going to talk about the three guys who are billionaire philanthropists, but you never mention the other one?
I think they're just still waiting to figure out. I mean, this was made at a time before things kind of got shaken up so much, and I think they're waiting. He was only in the TV universe at that point in time, and I think they're waiting for a moment to plant those seeds when they know that it's going to pay off very soon, or a setup, and they didn't know what they were going to do.
I will say I enjoyed the fact that they weren't cramming a bunch of cameos, and
I agree with you there too.
Yet another scene of Wonder Woman standing talking with no one else standing next to her.
Yeah, where was her scene where she comes in and just shows
up? That would
have
been so good.
But they attack the family looking for Jaime. He's not there, but they attack him. He's like, I gotta go, and he finds out the suit. He can't really summon it, but it's there to protect him. So when he then runs and jumps off the balcony of this mansion, they're up top talking. It appears, and he ends up jetting over there.
They did your trope.
Which one was it?
Where they were going to kiss, and then George Lopez walks in, and then they don't kiss.
So frustrating.
I thought about you as soon as that happened, and at least in that movie's that scene's defense, like, they had to go, which was fine. But as soon as that happened, I was like, "Oh man, Kevin is losing his mind right now."
So played out. But anyway, so he goes there. Meanwhile, they're just troops are storming in. The family's all trying to hide in a room. They take them out, and they have them with like laser pointed guns at them, dead to rights. Jaime shows up, starts kicking some ass.
But this is insane to me. Is that a private corporation?
Can do this.
Attacks a family, burns their house down, and then kills the father. I'm sure he has a heart attack, but he has a heart attack because he got socked in the face with a gun.
Good luck fighting that against high-paid lawyers. You know what I mean?
I was like, if we're gonna do an evil corporation, we're just gonna double down on as evil as we can make them.
Well, the Cord soldier. Remember when he first picks up Jenny in the truck? The Cord soldiers are coming after them with rifles, shooting the truck on the main street,
just out in the open.
I'm like, what kind of jurisdiction does this Cord Corporation have? And never do the cops show up in this movie.
Well, I think that they've said that the guys that we're seeing are the cops. I think George Lopez does have a line where he's like, they own the cops as well. So,
I mean, I think he meant that, and maybe that's a throwaway line to explain it, but come on, with this much destruction,
I don't disagree.
Guns, houses exploding, the cops aren't driving by. We do not see them once in this movie. It is so crazy that they don't show up. But the dad dies. And I will say, though, for as much as I had a problem with the writing of the family, some of the family stuff really works, especially with Jaime and his dad. Mm-hmm. And I teared up multiple times this movie. I think they got the emotional beats right in this movie.
I think that scene where Jaime is in quote-unquote heaven or wherever he's at, and he has that, and then he has the realization that his dad is dead. I think that was really powerful.
Which I think is another really good cultural thing, right? Like Dia de los Muertos, you see the family crossing over, and that's what that celebration is about. And
it looked a lot like Coco. Like just all the candles in the background and everything like that, like the way that was.
Like that's what I'm saying. So I think for them to bring in that culture, I really appreciated seeing that.
I thought he had died and gone to a Guns N' Roses video.
But yeah, and it was a nice moment. I think those emotional beats worked really well. Like when the dad died, even though I was like, these characters are really annoying.
Kevin was like, kill them all.
No, but
Kill 'em all.
I teared up where I'm like, why am I doing this? They're so annoying,
Well,
but
I think
care.
I think
you know?
the sister delivers one hell of a performance right there when she's trying to, when the dad goes down and she's trying to revive him, and they've
torn away. They've Jaime is like being electrocuted and his powers are debilitated, and so you see them like all screaming and yelling and reaching for each other, and it's a really emotional moment.
Yeah, I thought that was. You're right. I think there are some beats that are, and I like that line from the grandma where she's like, I think it's at the very end when everything is taken care of. And the Reyes are standing in a circle, and she says, like, and now we cry. I thought that was really good. That was really good line delivery. I thought that was really impressive.
So to me, this is really where the movie picks up. So now they have, Blue Beetle is in their research lab. Susan Sarandon wants to basically decode the alien technology and put it into the OMAC so he becomes super powerful, and it will also power all the other little OMACs in the lab. Meanwhile, the family is like alluding to what Joe said that's going to come later. They're like, right now we don't cry. We need to save Jaime. And so they stand up and they go to Jenny's like, I think I know what can help. And she opens up like this locker of all
like
the Blue Beetles
garbage
crazy
gadgets.
technology, right?
The power glove.
The sister wears a power glove, and I'm thinking like a lot of kids are gonna have no idea what that is. But I have one of those things still from the NES days.
Do you really?
I still have it.
That's
they're
funny.
worth like $300 now. They're so crazy rare. But I appreciate it. And there's a lot of video game references. I wrote some of them down.
Get over here.
That was
Get
a good
over
one.
here
Yeah,
from Mortal
yeah.
Kombat. The guns that he has are basically like Buster blasters from Mega Man.
Yeah,
And he's blue, so I thought that was very fitting.
Pulls out a sword from Final Fantasy, doesn't he?
That sword is crazy.
The Buster sword, Cloud sword from Final Fantasy VII. That sword definitely looks like that. And in this version of the Blue Beetle, it's very much like Green Lantern, where anything he imagines he can make. And so I think it makes sense that a kid would make the sword from Final Fantasy.
Right.
And so I thought those were really fun. I also appreciated the movie references when they go down into a cave to like in the research lab, they land on a skull, which was very Terminator reminiscent.
Mm-hmm.
There can be only one Highlander reference. There was another Terminator reference, and I can't remember what it was, but clearly the writer's a fan of movies and video games, and I appreciated all those little references. But the family steps up. They get all the kooky weapons. This is what I think sets the movie apart, is instead of other superheroes coming and saving the day, we have your everyman family, including grandmas, stepping up, using goofy technology. George Lopez is piloting the bug, and they're going in there, and they are just taking out guards. As again, I think it's mixed messages.
I was fine with. Again, it's hard not to watch this and not think Watchmen, because the ship is identical.
Right.
But when it climbs up the wall and it steps on that guy, and initially he's just knocking they're using the legs to just knock guys out of the way.
Yeah, which
would
be fine.
That's
you're
fine.
like, okay. I mean, in the real world, they're still paralyzed.
Sure,
but in a movie, you're like, okay, they're hitting him out of the way.
When he steps on that guy, and I was like, well, and then he the leg comes up
through him.
The dude is
impaled.
still attached to the leg, and he just like kicks the guy off. And I was like, well, they just impaled that guy. All right.
But you think that when the sister takes the power glove and punches the guy with that much force, like that guy's okay? Like, no,
but then
they're murdering people.
They do that blood splatter with not Sanchez. Like when there's a giant,
one of the more violent things. Yeah.
I was like, oh,
but they're bad guys, Joe. That's the difference.
That guy wasn't a bad guy.
No. They are bad guys that killed him. That is the difference. We're talking about the family is murdering people.
I see.
That Sanchez scene, like, where they call him Sanchez, and then at the end he's like, that's not my name. They've been calling him the wrong name the whole movie. Yeah. It irritated me that in the credits
he's listed as
Sanchez.
Is listed as Sanchez. Yeah.
So he was liar. But we talk about this time and time again. The heroes have to be the ones that come above stuff. And we don't watch movies, and when the bad guys are doing bad stuff, we go, oh yeah, the moral of the movie is they're saying do bad stuff. Like, that's the message that people get confused a lot. It's like, they're villains, they do bad stuff, and the whole point is they shouldn't be. So I'm okay with them killing. It's terrible, but that's why they're villains. But the family should be subduing people. They should be like, oh, this is set to stun. Like, give us some...
Especially when Jaime goes out of his way to tell the Scarab, do not kill them. Like, we're not going to kill them. We're just going to stun them. And then the Scarab... Once Jaime and the Scarab finally sync up completely, the Scarab starts speaking in Spanish, which I thought was kind of fun. But even like when Jaime's gonna do is gonna kill the bad guy, the Scarab steps in and says,
his
hey,
rage is overtaken. They killed his dad or got his dad killed. They're trying to kill his family.
His house down.
It's a really good moment because the dude would be pissed, and I like that the Beetle is like, remember, we don't kill.
Here's
it's
the
really
problem,
cool.
though. We just saw that in Spider-Man.
We saw a lot of this in
I
Spider-Man.
feel like we
Jones.
see a lot of the whole rage is taking me over. And
Well,
Sure.
that's true, but I mean
that
the whole thing where Peter's going to kill the Green Goblin, and Peter 1 steps in and stops him, and then gets
That is but that's why this whole movie is full of these tropes. The other thing is, too, this is too much Iron Man. I'm done with if you're in a robot suit, you're Iron Man. The heads up. Oh, that's what Terminator is from the bar. He's scanning the family like Terminator 2
sure.
in the bar when he's scanning them for their sizes. It's a heads up display just like that. I appreciated that.
Can't let you leave with the man's bike, son.
Yeah. but the Jarvis and the heads up display thing, I just think it's too much Iron Man. We've seen it so many times. They've got to figure out a different way to show a heads up display.
I don't mind the Jarvis part, like having a voice trying to walk you through things, but I think since 2008 when Iron Man, this is what everybody does.
But
if
just
you
do
put
it
on
a different way,
How do you do it though?
But instead of like a Jarvis robot, maybe just make them talk like a normal person because it's alien technology. I don't know, but it feels too much like Iron Man, and I'm just kind of getting sick of it.
What would be fun is if when Jaime first gets the Scarab, it's speaking in alien language, and then as the movie progresses, as they sync up closer and closer, their language
I am Groot.
Yes.
Right?
It is I am Groot. Yeah, never mind.
That's all right. No, I got you. No, again, it syncs up with him. It speaks Spanish.
I like
Yeah,
when they
right,
start
yeah,
talking
right.
to
That's
him in
what,
Spanish.
yeah.
Which
So
makes
they
total
can't-
sense because it's part of his brain now, and if he
Right.
speaks Spanish, it would speak Spanish. Like
Yes, exactly.
I like that.
So
Although they
all-
should have gone full on Greatest American Hero and just not had a voice and have it like so much of the Greatest American Hero was he gets this suit but he has no instructions, and so he just has to do through trial and error figure out how to use it.
I think it's just because in the comics they did it, so they're
No,
trying
I
to be
get it,
faithful,
yeah.
which is cool. And again, hats off to them for doing their research, incorporating
Yeah.
the Silver Age stuff and the new comics. I think they did a really good job with that. But yeah, the family's kicking ass. It's fun to watch. I mean, again, I don't think they should do as much killing, but the fact that it's a family stepping up and using silly inventions. Jenny Cord is up in the helicopter now. Susan Sarandon has abducted her up in the helicopter. She brings the gum, which is one of Ted Cord's inventions. Chews it. Terrible CG.
That's
but a
real.
fun,
It looks like the 1950s blob. Like it's
very
real
bad. But it's a fun concept where the bubble gum is expanding and they end up bouncing out of the helicopter. They crash land and Susan Sarandon basically has her. The bad guy is fighting Blue Beetle.
I gotta tell you, I thought the entire time when they keep referencing, obviously they keep referencing Ted Cord, so we know that he's gonna show up.
Oh yeah,
at
you
some
know he's
point.
not dead because they said he disappeared. So
I thought
yeah.
the gum was like a tracking device.
Oh
That was like gonna, because she's like she says that's something my dad made for me,
yeah.
and I was like, oh, it's gonna be like that's the trigger, like that's the thing that's gonna bring Ted Cord back, and
Gotcha.
but
I think it was
not.
just like a protection for his little
It
kid,
was,
because
yes.
it was no, he's in the quantum realm though, Joe.
Oh my god.
Is it not like the same after credits of Ant-Man where what's her face is
Michelle
like
Pfeiffer.
I'm stuck in the quantum. It's just I
Yeah.
don't know. This movie feels so reductive.
Except Marvel actually would cast the role so you could get excited about
Right.
who will play this character in the
Correct.
future.
I know this one's all blurry. Like we don't
Yeah.
know who this
And there's
is.
no, it's like generic white guy
garble.
voice.
Yeah, garble.
We
Yeah.
haven't determined how much money we want to spend on this casting yet, so
Right. It's
we
gotta
won't
be
reveal
you gotta
who it
get
is.
Patrick Wilson.
Well, after the Red Door, maybe he'll be available.
He will be.
No, it made a ton of money for whatever
Of
reason.
course it did. It's a
so-
Blumhouse movie.
Yeah. Anyway, so we find out that he's gone full OMAC. He's got all the powers. He's fighting Blue Beetle. He seems stronger than Blue Beetle. He's got him pretty much dead to rights. And it ends up that we get this flashback. Who saves him? Does George Lopez throw some rocks at him?
He
And
throws
then-
rocks at him, and then I think that.
How do they stop him?
So he thinks that George Lopez is dead. Jaime thinks that Uncle Rudy has
He
been
shoots
killed.
explosives at
Right,
him.
and he snaps, and he just starts tearing into.
Oh, and Jaime kicks his ass.
Yeah, Jaime, beats the out of him, and then as he's about to kill him,
Scarab.
the Scarab says, "While I was being drained from you,
They milked him.
They milked him.
They milked it.
That's exactly right.
I'm seriously like, it's so weird how those things happen because they put him in a milking machine.
Yes.
Splinter was right. Everyone listened to Splinter.
And we basically find out that Cord Industry, again, this is just like Iron Man.
Iron Man.
With Cord written on the missile. Cord Industries killed this guy's mother. Susan Sarandon kind of adopted this guy and ripped him apart, tore him to pieces.
Hey, I guess to give him credit, though, just like in the long line of stealing from other comics, I mean, this is right in line. They just stole from a bunch of superhero movies.
That's true. They're both companies are just bouncing each other's ideas off of each other.
But he's a victim in all this. As a kid, Cord took him, brainwashed him, used him for all their war things, got him disfigured and arms blown off and replacing him with robot parts. And Susan Sarandon says the same thing she says about Jaime. She says if it kills him, then so be it. It's for the greater good. And so he realizes
the greater good.
Yeah, so he's been used and abused, and he ends up then standing up against her. And this is when he does the...
Okay, so did you think that, like, that they forgot? Right?
I couldn't tell, honestly.
There was that, like, when she would get up in his face like that, and sometimes you could say that it was like a motherly thing.
I think she was using it. I don't think they did, but I think she was manipulating him.
But also, he was a child.
Throughout the years, I think... She found him as a child, but I'm saying that I think that he's obviously, how old do you think that guy is now? 56? Like, he's older now, so...
Yeah, that's true.
But
and it was super weird.
It's weird. So anyway, he almost kills him. The suit stops him, but then the guy stands up and is like, "Yeah, I'm just gonna go blow up Susan Sarandon now."
The suit goes, "He's turned up his internal energy.
We should run.
How
about you should fly? Remember those flying powers?
Yeah, you can fly, right?
Yeah. Oh, and he does even like kind of a repulsor beam.
Yes. His fingertips and his feet have like repulsor stuff on them. Yeah.
So anyway, that's it. The family.
Yeah.
They all survive, aside from the dad. The dad pass away. They have a big gathering and party where people bring food at the end, and then
he gets a smooch.
Yeah, Jenny shows up and is like, "Hey, I got places to be," and he's like, "Let me give you a ride." And then
she shows up looking like Sandy from Grease.
She does. It's like the end of it is.
It's like she's not dressed like that at one point in the movie.
She's a biker always in all leather.
Right. She's always been like very. Well, I don't even know how you describe it. Like fashionable.
Yeah.
Like business fashionable. And now she's rocking like black leather pants and a leather jacket.
The Blue Beetle thing is the scarab is basically like, "I've detected you have a boner." Essentially, is what
that is the other. There were multiple when
is blood rushing to your midsection,
which I think is a kind of a funny joke. But like the farting joke, did you hear this joke?
It's just another kids movie
terrible.
thing. Yeah,
I hated it.
Well, with the scene where they're at the mansion and they almost kiss in the bed. When he gets up to leave, he's
to, like, pull his jacket
hiding
down.
his erection. Yeah.
I was like, "Yeah, we've all been there. I get it."
So we'll see. And then post-credit thing, the blue Ted Cord's alive in the quantum realm, and we'll see where that goes.
Tell my daughter I'm alive.
So
yeah, like that was so cheesy.
And there's a suit missing. Like that's the other thing is they keep referencing. Like if you look in the Beetle cave or whatever the hell it's called, there's Dan Garrett's suit, the original like Golden Age Blue Beetle suit. There's the Ted Cord suit, and then there's like a mannequin with nothing on it. And I was like, well, what the hell is that? Like,
it's probably what he's wearing.
It's what he's
gone.
using.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
That's it for this one. Let's go around the table and everyone can say where to find him.
This is Joe. You can follow me on the Twitter at JoeyButts, BUTTS21, also at Letterboxd at the same.
This is Kevin. Follow me on Twitter at KevinRBrackett.
And this is Tom. Follow me on Twitter at Roger Kubert or on Facebook at Facebook.com/Tom O'Keefe. Find the show online at Facebook.com/Real Spoilers. And of course, don't forget our Patreon. So that's it for this one. Thanks for tuning in. And until next time, Paul's grandfather upsets the producer.
Get ready for a spoiler. Won't say it twice because we already